prosecution outlined how accounting practices of common discussions did not.
What kind of likeness is that? If they were great artists, they'll be in a museum.
Evidence today may signal at least one.
I'm fucking fodder for cartoonists now.
Welcome to another episode of Gutter Boys. Gutter Boys is a small press comics podcast about the ins, the outs, and the highs and very deep lows of making comics. I'm your host, JB, with my co-host, Cam. Today, we are joined by Audra Stang, but before we get to them, we first want to discuss some pretty big programming that we're going to be providing here on the Gutter Boys channel moving forward for roughly about a month or so. To introduce to you, wait, how should I word this?
Just tell them I'm back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Pete Faecke's back.
Yeah.
Pete's back. And Pete's going to be breaking down exactly what the deal is for any of you that might be confused as to what this Autoptic thing entails. So Pete, take it away.
Well, yeah, we're doing a digital festival this year, like most organizers who had a show this year are. So what that looks like for us is we're doing sort of a virtual tribute to the show that almost was with you guys. We're working with you guys, putting out a bunch of interviews with our special guests. And then we also are doing a anthology that was open to anybody who applied.
So the anthology, is it a digital anthology, or are you all actually doing print copies as well?
We're going to do pre-orders, yeah. It'll definitely be digital. Anybody who contributed will get a copy in their email, but we're doing pre-orders too, so keep an eye out for that, and we'll have more updates on that come in, I think, in the next couple of weeks.
Alrighty, so I know we kind of touched on it the last episode, but the way this is going to work is Autoptic is August 22nd. What's going to happen is all the panels and discussions that were scheduled for the show are going to be uploaded into our podcast feed. Pete, do you kind of want to run down some of the featured panels that people can look forward to hearing?
Yeah, so I'm going to be interviewing friend of the podcast, MS Harkness, and then I'm also interviewing Madeline McGrain, super talented local cartoonist. She's also doing the cover for the anthology, and I think some of the interviews going to be transcribed in there as well. She was going to be the festival artist, so we're putting her on the cover of the anthology. And then you guys are going to be doing an interview with Josh Pettinger. I think I said that right. Mm-hmm. And Sean Knickerbocker, another board member. He will be interviewing Rumi Hara and Julia Gaforer.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to actually hearing those discussions. Alrighty, so in addition to just being uploaded into our feed, if you're a subscriber or, you search us up on whatever podcast platform, you all are also going to host all the content on your website. That's the plan, is that correct?
Yeah, we're looking at maybe just starting a RSS feed as well. So keep an eye on the Autoptic social media and the autoptic.org, and we'll keep you updated on where you can check it out.
At Autoptic Festival.
Yeah, so that should be it for everything. You should be able to just look up Autoptic on Facebook too, and it should come up pretty easy.
Hell yeah. So Autoptic was a show that took place every 2 years with the cancellation of the physical show this year. Are you all still skipping next year? And we'll see the next one.
We're trying to get back in person next year.
Hell yeah. So at that point, is it still going to be, every other year after that?
I think so. That's the plan. Just, with everything going on right now, it's, we'll switch it up too. We'll do 2 years in a row here.
Alrighty, so the date, everything is going to be uploaded, is going to be August 22nd. We, as in JB and I, will have an interview with Josh Pettinger of Goiter Comics, and, there's going to be a bunch of different other discussions uploaded as well. So, we hope you enjoy the content. We're very excited to be working with Pete, good friend of the show, as well as Autoptic. So, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're stoked to be working with you guys, too.
Hell yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Audra Stang. So stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
The Northwest is the capital of alternative strip cartoons, or comics for grown-ups who like their comics grown up. Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons, is Seattle-born and bred. But there are many more where he came from. Bill Judkins went to Fantagraphics looking for the new Bart.
This former Seattle roller disco is now the warehouse for Fantagraphic Comics, the country's largest producer of alternative comic magazines and titles. This place is full of thousands and thousands of comic books.
What we're trying to do is to publish comics that have some literary or artistic merit. Oddly enough, we're in sort of a renaissance in comic art today, but paradoxically, more and more people are buying comics for purely speculative reasons than they are for the actual reading experience. And we publish comics essentially for that reading experience.
I'd say we publish a couple dozen books a year and probably about 200 to 250 individual comics, whether in series or one-shots.
This is Love and Rockets, the comic for mature readers created by the Hernandez brothers. Some say it was Fantagraphics' first big success.
It was one of the first titles that Fantagraphics published on a regular basis prior to the popularity of titles like Hate and 8-Ball. And I think paved the way for a whole group of new underground cartoonists with socially relevant themes. It accurately reflects American society in its cultural diversity.
Buddy Bradley, a character in a comic book called Hate, speaks for an entire generation of American malcontents.
Well, Hate Comics mainly revolves around a character named Buddy Bradley. He has a negative slant on everything, and for that reason is very reluctant to commit himself to anything. A character like Buddy and people who identify with him, what they love is pretty much defined by what they hate, and vice versa.
Real Stuff, written by Dennis Eichhorn, is a prime example of the new trend of autobiographical comics.
They are all basically true stories, and each issue generally has stories that deal with sex, drugs, violence, and or pathos or humor.
But these are the hottest titles of all. So hot, in fact, that maybe they should be printed on asbestos paper.
Well, we expanded to the erotic comics line essentially out of desperation. We were financially very deep in the hole, and we were looking for a way to make some quick and easy money.
In less than 2 years, the Eros comic line has turned around the fortunes of the company. Some popular titles include Birdland, Butterscotch, and the seminal Wendy Whitebread, Undercover Slut.
Anton Drek comics do push the limit. I mean, that virtually every sex act, I think an upcoming issue, he's promising bestiality. It's a werewolf story. If the comic book gives me a hard-on, then I know it's probably going to do the same for thousands of readers all over the world.
These porno comics might be fine for the boys, but what about the girls? Roberta Gregory is the creator of Naughty Bits, a sex-explicit but non-erotic adult comic sprinkled with feminist fury.
I think like a lot of the Eros comics, I mean, it's basically like the same tired fantasies about women. And I know some of the art, like especially like the Anton Drek art, really seems to reflect a lot of hostility towards women. This is bitchy bitch, I mean, showing her sexual fantasies, which are not ladylike, cute tampon commercial fantasies. They're, pretty brutal, pretty vile, just like a lot of women's fantasies. And she's pretty realistic. She sort of takes the frosting off of cartoon women.
I promised Lori Pike I'd find her a copy of Love and Rockets #3, and I know it's here somewhere, but only got 2,000 more boxes to go.
Now, back to our program.
And welcome back. Today we're joined by Audra Stang, comic artist.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Audra?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Cam, how are you doing today?
I'm good. All things considered, glad to be talking to you all. I know we've had to reschedule this a couple times, so I'm glad it's finally happening.
Hell yeah.
But, moving along. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is maybe the first conversation I've had in, when did we stop being able to work? Like 20 days? Besides my boyfriend?
Sometime in March?
Wow, yeah.
Like mid-March or early March?
Yeah, well, in Pittsburgh, we went back to work for like 3 weeks, and then they closed everything back down again because people got sick. Yeah.
Well, yeah, right.
When did you all go back to work? Was that like shortly after the beginning of lockdown, or was that recently?
We went back like June 6th, and then we stopped, I don't remember, it was right before the 4th of July. They shut it all back down again. I think like the mayor did an ordinance, and then Tom Wolfe shut everything down again. I don't know. It's all confusing.
Right. Yeah. It seems like there's so many conflicting reports of what's actually happening right now. But, getting back into the root of comics, Audra is currently based in Pittsburgh and is a cartoonist that spent time at the Comics Workbook residency with Frank Santoro. She is also currently working on her anthology, The Audra Show, that has a few different stories running through it. And recently you just reissued a book, Pale, Sick, and Magic. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Was that printed before, or is this like a new printing of something that was out before, or is this just something you had in the vault?
I think I printed maybe 30 of them for SPX in 2017 in black and white, and I just gave them to people. I sold some to Bill Boychelle at Copacetic, but I just had the opportunity to print again now, and I was like, I need to do it because I had never printed it in color. And I think it was originally published online in color, but I had the opportunity to print it, and I just wanted to take it while I could.
It's a really good story. It's actually really strong. It deals with, themes of suicide, and you see the two main characters are kind of polar opposite when it comes to social circles, but they have a common theme of, a missing friend. So dealing with subject matter like that, it's almost a raw kind of story in a way. It deals with a lot of the emotions that come along with grief. Was this something that, you completely made up, or was this you working through some things? If you don't mind me asking that, I don't mean to pry to get too personally.
No, for sure. So I drew this my last semester of my senior year of college, and my concentration ended up being work about this experience I had of my friend passing away in high school. The comic's pretty autobiographical. It happened when Osama bin Laden died, so that whole part where she's watching it on TV, that actually happened. And actually, I'm the sandwich girl on the first page because I figured people would be which girl are you? So I just drew myself, so it was completely clear which girl I was.
So, we always ask our guests this, but, why comics?
I guess because that thing you hear people say where it's comics is memory, and so working through those memories, I think comics was kind of the most accurate way of portraying that, especially because I don't know, the stuff I remember, it's really weird, I don't know, it might just be how grass looked, if that makes sense, and so that's, I could write about how grass looks, but I would rather just draw it. I think that's more direct. But then other stuff, dialogue, memory of people talking, I think that's why, honestly. I know that's kind of trite, but it's because it's true.
Well, and you mentioned, dialogue, and I think that's a really strong aspect of your work. A lot of comics don't have the luxury of having dialogue that sounds natural, but your characters speak to one another in natural ways, if that makes sense. And I almost feel like it might be the setting. A lot of, half of the stories in the Audra Show are based in a restaurant for our listeners that haven't seen the book. And I spent a lot of time in restaurants, so I'm assuming just based off of the level of detail in the restaurant that you spent time in restaurants as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing before the quarantine, actually.
I always tell people this, restaurants are the craziest places you can work. There are so many different walks of life in and out of those places. And I guess are these characters based off of, people that you know?
Kind of. When I did Little Minnow, I hadn't actually worked in a restaurant yet. I had interviewed for a job, and there was a month before I was to start, so that comic was just kind of me imagining it. And then the stuff in Bia, more specifically is kind of based on people. Like, I don't know, but it's not super specific. Like, it's almost like when you're a line cook and you yell runner over and over and over again, and like the server doesn't come. I don't know. It's like a niche relatable. You know what I mean?
No, for sure, for sure. And like, you know, like the scene where they even like get upset about what's on the jukebox. You know, you hear the same fucking thing. Well, not necessarily upset, but they're like, there's a customer that, you know, keeps playing, I think it was foreigner songs on a jukebox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is upsetting.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's so many little like pieces there like that are like attention to detail that like me just having experience in restaurants, like it was so relatable. And it's, you know, so it's like a nice little nod to that. So as far as like your process goes, you've got this whole self-contained universe in the Audra Show. It's run 4 issues so far. I think you're working on issue 5, right?
Yes, I think I have like 4 or 5 pages left in it, and then I'll be done.
Hell yeah. And, you know, you've done a lot of universe building and world building here in this book. You know, it's, I was reading through them this week, you know, in preparation for this. How much of this has been like premeditated? Like, do you just write each issue when you're ready to work on the next one? Or is this just one big plan that you have?
It's like one big plan, and then when I go to work on an issue, I might storyboard something more specific. But as far as like the general, like what's the period of time? I think I'm working with like a 50-year time window. Like all those relationships I know, and then I might like zoom in on something and elaborate on that more. Like I can't remember if it was Jaime or Gilbert, but they talked about like filling in the map, and so it's just like I'm just like filling in the map.
Well, it's really kind of funny you brought them up because, like, I really do see a lot of parallels in the Audra Show to Love and Rockets. You know, you've got these characters that are being explored, you know, they just have so much personality behind them. And then also the way that you split the book into 2 different stories, just 2 little, like, interesting kind of small parallels that I saw between the 2. But as far as, you know, when you're working, you know, you mentioned you were working a day job before pandemic. Do you set time aside that you force yourself to work on comics? Or, you know, what's your schedule look like when you're working on comics?
Yeah, generally, I just would make myself draw comics when I come home from work. And that was like a routine I started setting up at the residency. So I would work maybe like 6:30 in the morning to, I don't know, this is a little too specific, but it was like 6:30 to 4:30, come home and like shower and eat and stuff. Draw from about 7 to like 11 to midnight. Like I could normally knock out like 1 page a day and then just go to sleep and start over. I would try to do that at least like 3 or 4 days a week consistently, but sometimes it's not as consistent, honestly.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard for me to, you know, draw. So I'll go, you know, recently we have a group chat and, you know, one of our buddies like went like 2 or 3 weeks without drawing. And we were like, yeah, you know, we're all pretty much in the same boat right now. Like I'll doodle every day, but sometimes I just can't force myself to do it. It helps having a deadline personally, or like knowing that I have a project that needs to be done by this time or whatever. But
yeah. Like I always have like my end date set. So that way I know, like if I don't draw this week, it's kind of like, well, you know, you're going to have to pull it off, buddy. Like, I hate pushing a date back, and I'll do it if I think the comic will suffer for it. Like, I don't want to put out something that's shit, but, like, going back to, like, restaurants, like, sometimes you get fucked. Sometimes, like, you're there till volume.
Right.
You might get fucked into being there, you know, 12 hours or 13 hours, or, you know, for some people, 16 or 17 hours. I've personally never had to experience that. And you thought you were going to be there 8 hours.
Are you front of house or back of house?
I'm both. I started at back of house, and that's my preference. Somewhere along the way, I ended up being a hostess. I needed like 4 more hours, and then they were like, well, do you want to just host 1 day a week? And then I started doing that, and then, I don't know, so basically both. Yes.
Hell yeah.
But prefer back of house, though.
No, for sure.
Always.
Yeah, it's easier because, I mean, like, it's, like, crazier in the back, but, you know, it's more free of an environment in my experience.
Yeah, like, you could just get pissed off. I mean, with line, like, I'll be honest, like, I'm not a good line cook. I get overwhelmed, but I'm a really good prep cook. I just go in, and it's like, I have the tools, the food, the recipes, and then there's, like, a par list or whatever, and I do that. And so, like, I actually think about my comics on my shifts a lot, so it might be, like, I think about what I'm gonna draw, and then I go home and I draw it. But online, like, I can't think about comics online.
Right. No.
I mean, I could, but it wouldn't be good.
Yeah, you got to do something to escape from the day job reality. I do a lot of daydreaming and stuff like that when I was working as well. So I kind of have a few notes here. You put out the Star Valley character guide. And one question I had was, has the Audra Show been published elsewhere besides these, like, 4 issues that have come out? Like, do you put additional content for these characters online anywhere?
No, it's the opposite. I try to always put something in the print books that's not online. And I don't know, there's like illustrations I do that I post on Instagram that don't end up in the books, but as far as comics go, yeah, whatever's on Instagram you get in the book, but what's in the book you might not get on Instagram.
So with the Star Valley character guide, there's some characters in there that haven't technically been introduced yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so
yeah.
I guess they're coming.
Or they're in older comics.
Okay, gotcha. So these characters were in work before the Audra Show.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what were those books? What was it? Just like random minis, or?
Yeah. So Oliver and his band are in "Love Me Like an Autograph," which was a book I published my senior year or junior year of college. I got a chapbook grant, so I just like pitched it to the department, and then they chose my thing. And I think they printed 100 copies, and 50 of them they gave away at an event, and then 50 of them I got to keep. Jesse and Maya are in comics I also did in college, and a lot of these are actually all on my website too. Like Love Me Like an Autograph's on my website. I did some comics about like Adelaide and Bryson in school that would technically be before the stuff in the Audra Show, and so these are their classmates. Kelsey and Jean and Adela, if anybody's pulled out their book and is referencing it as I talk, they're like characters from like, I don't know if you remember like National Novel Writing Month. I tried to do that in like 10th or 11th grade. Like a lot of the characters in my comics, they're like characters I've had in some way since like middle school, which is kind of, I don't know. It's not embarrassing, but they've just like changed over time, and so like it was fun to draw them here. And actually, some of these characters are also in a comic I did for Comics Workbook that was called Indigo Right. I think that was like in 2014 or 2015, and Frank had just solicited like 8-page scroll comics. So it was like about Bryson and his sister and like being at school. And then like the parent characters, I don't think any of them have been introduced yet. I think you see Vicky in one of the panels, I think in the 4th book, but yeah.
Hell yeah. So you were talking about, Comics Workbook. We had fellow alumni, MS Harkness, I think she spent some time there, and then Caleb Orecchio did some time there recently, and they kind of talked about their experiences a little bit there. What was your experience like? Like, why did you want to attend that residency? And could you go into a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, so I did a gap year in college, and I knew somebody who had taken like an online art class, and then he got a job with an animation studio or something. And so to take Frank's course, I was like, hey mom, if I take this course, I could end up working at a studio with a salary like this guy I went to school with. So she bought me Frank's course, or I think we went like half and half on Frank's course for Christmas. And I had always struggled, like these characters I'd had for a really long time, and I had done like illustrations and stuff of them, but I had never been able to really finish a comic. And so Frank's method of like with the note cards really helped me organize all that stuff and actually like finish a story. And I would always start things and then I would never know how to like stick the landing, so to speak. But then by just like using the note cards and being able to rearrange them, you can kind of like calculate your trajectory of where you're gonna land, so to speak, if that makes sense. That was cool. And then after I did that, I actually got, I got a storyboard test for Steven Universe. And like that was really cool because, I had never had any professional recognition before. Because they did like an open call on Tumblr for Steven Universe storyboarders, and I submitted because I was like, I don't know, maybe they might have me test. That was cool, and I felt like I wouldn't have been able to like do that if I hadn't done the course online. So I really wanted to like support Frank's school, and I wanted to learn from him hands-on when the opportunity came up.
I think Helen Jo also worked on storyboards for Steven Universe.
Yeah, she did in the first season.
Yeah.
She did. Yeah, there were like a lot of really cool people who worked on Steven Universe. Like, it's like, I think like Lamar Abrams was working on Steven Universe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. I mean, like, I really liked Rebecca Sugar.
She's the showrunner, right? Or they're the showrunner? Okay.
I don't know. I think they're the showrunner, and let me see. And I learned of their work storyboarding on Adventure Time. time. Honestly, I didn't read Pug Davis, but I'm sure it's very good. But yeah, I wanted to, like, you know, learn from Frank hands-on when the opportunity came up, and I wanted to support the school because, you know, I felt like my skill grew exponentially in a rather small window having done the online course. So it was like 3-day residency before my senior year of college, and I stayed in his house. They, like, picked me up from the train, and then, or Sal picked me up on the train, and then took me to Frank's house, and then we, like, had seltzer water and went to sleep, and then we woke up, and I started working on Pale-Sick and Magic. I actually, like, wrote that while I was there, and then I took it home with me and finished it, and we published it on Comics Workbook, the Tumblr.
So all in all, would you recommend the residency to someone that was interested? I don't think it's going right now, but, you know, you did say you feel that you develop skills in, like, a quick window. Do you feel like it's just for a certain type of cartoonist, or do you think it's like a pretty open system to, you know, allow anybody of any level in?
Yeah, I mean, I think Frank is a teacher. Like, he's good at working with you at whatever, like, level you're on, and he's good at, like, honing in on what somebody, like, might need to work on. Because I did a few residencies. I did the 3-day, and then I came back in January, and I did a 2-week-long residency where I think I did, like, the draft of a 20-page comic or a 40-page comic, but then I never showed it to anybody because I didn't like it when I finished. But personally, the shorter residencies, the shorter stuff was more beneficial to me, but that's because I was bad at time management. So, like, I think on the 2-week residency, yeah, I, like, drew out a 20-page book, but, like, on the first 3-day residency, I drew out, like, a 16-page book.
Were you deliberately taking longer because you knew you had more time, do you think? Or do you just think that...
I think, I had just finished college. I think, honestly, I was, like, tired and like, I don't know why I did an artist residency right after college, because I was so exhausted after college that I don't think I necessarily, you know, got the most out of the time that I could have. And also I was mad because it didn't snow. Like, I thought it was going to snow, and then it just rained the whole time, and, like, that pissed me off. You know, because I'd lived in North Carolina my whole life, except for I lived in Orlando briefly when I did an internship in the Disney parks. So I'd, like, never lived or been outside of the South in the winter, so I thought it was going to be like this winter wonderland, and then it was just shit. and Trump got inaugurated, that too. Like, yeah, like, Sal and I, like, watched Trump get inaugurated, and it's, like, shitty outside. It's like, oh man, you know, I don't know.
Didn't Frank take you all on the road? Because I met you very briefly at a table at CXC in either 2016 or 2017.
It was 2017, yeah. It was like SPX and CXC. I think there was maybe a third show that I didn't go to. I don't remember, though. I think Frank went to Cab, but, like, Frank and Sally went, Sal went, but Caleb and I didn't go. But yeah, it was like the 4 of us, and we would all convoy our way to the comics convention and table, and Juan and Jen too. Like, there's a lot, like, it's like a huge pod, like the Pittsburgh pod for SPX. You have, like, Lane Graff, Sid Blackwell, Sam O'Beery, I'm gonna forget somebody, Anne, but I can't remember their last name at the moment, but it's like a group of like 10 or 15 people who go to SPX. But yeah.
Were you tabling before?
No.
You know, you made that run? No?
No, I've never tabled.
So does Frank offer, like, tips and whatnot when tabling? Like, is that part of the experience of the residency? Or do you know, I didn't know if,
No, honestly, like, I stayed the fuck away from the table most of the time. I was at the table sometimes, but mostly. And also, this was, like, near the beginning of me being at comic shows, and I still do it now, but I genuinely get, like, starstruck by meeting cartoonists. So, like, I think I went and stood in line for, like, Dan Clowes, and then Rob Clow was in front of me in line, and, like, I met him, which was cool. But who else did I think I'm thinking of 2016 actually, but there was one year it was like the Fantagraphics 40th anniversary, and, like, Simon was there, and, like, the Hernandez brothers were there, and Carol Tyler was there, and I'm just, like, losing my shit, you know. I'd been to Heroes Con in Charlotte. That was like an hour-and-a-half drive. Sid Blackwell and I would go to that one, but otherwise, like, I'd never been to, like, a true, like, small press thing. But as far as tabling goes, I mean, like, I'm guilty. I didn't hang around the table. I used it as just an opportunity to see things I had never seen before.
Did you like Heroes Con?
I loved Heroes Con, actually. I haven't been since I moved to Pittsburgh, but I went like 4 years in a row. And like the first year I went, it was like I was on Tumblr and like Noah Van Sciver had posted like, come to my table my sad table at Heroes Con, and it was just like him sitting alone at a folding table. And I was like, oh, Marshall, like my friend Marshall was like, oh, we gotta go to Heroes Con, man. Like, let's go. And so we actually went there, and they have like the Indie Island. So I'm trying to think, like Evan Dorkin was there. I like his stuff. I'm having a hard time.
He's there almost every year.
Yeah. Like Ben Sears, Richie Pope, a lot of like really cool people there. So I would hang out there, and then I might like dip into the more cosplay. Like that's the only thing I don't like about it is honestly like, yeah, you might get like hit in the face with like a wing or something, or like somebody's like body paint might rub off on your shit, and like that sucks because like those are my clothes, you know. Like,
yeah.
But I like it. Like I think the cosplay is like cool. Like I would take pictures with people because one of the years I was there, like Mad Max had just come out, like Fury Road, and there were some really, really good cosplayers. And, you know, I think I took a picture with Dogman at CXC, but otherwise, you know, there's none of that.
I actually remember that group of Mad Max cosplayers. I think I have
For
that
real?
photo on my phone somewhere still.
Yeah. It just, Facebook just reminded me it was like that it happened, which I thought was cool.
Have you ever tabled it?
No, I just visited. I think the first show I had never tabled until last year, 2019, and I tabled at SPX, CXC, and Pittsburgh Zine Fair. And then I also had stuff at the Comics Workbook table at CAB, but I didn't really man that table. But I was there, you know.
What were you going to ask, JB? I'm sorry.
I don't remember.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Also.
No, it's okay.
No, it's all right.
You'll remember.
Yeah, Heroes is pretty good. That's a show that I definitely would attend because it's definitely a great networking place.
Yeah, and I think it's a good model as far as like the whole thing of like comics does need comics fans to survive. Or I don't know, my goal is to kind of be like, I don't know anybody who reads my comics who doesn't make comics, which kind of sucks, but it's kind of cool because sometimes people are really specific about what they like, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, thanks man, you know, that's awesome. But at the same time, like, there have to be like non-comics readers for comics to survive, and I think Heroes Con does a great job of having something for everybody. And I might see something that I wouldn't have given a chance before, maybe, or like I just end up seeing something that I wouldn't come across organically. Because, you know, like the way the internet is now, like unless you're specifically looking for new shit, like you're just going to see the same shit over and over again. And like the other way around, you know, somebody might see like some weird small press thing that they wouldn't see before. Like it's really luck. I feel like finding like small press stuff is luck. Like I found a Lauren Weinstein comic at the library when I was in 8th grade that like changed like the trajectory of my life. Like, where the fuck do you find a Lauren Weinstein comic at the library? I hope a lot of libraries, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Because I could never find like comics by women that weren't manga. And I loved manga, but like I wanted to read more like superhero comics and stuff because I really liked the Teen Titans show. I was like in 5th grade when like the Glenn Murakami he worked on Teen Titans Go, so that's not a good distinction, but you know what I mean, like the early 2000s Teen Titans. But I could never find like comics by women. I was like 11 and I wanted to find like a precedent for myself and I couldn't find it, and then Lauren Weinstein fell into my arms, you know, and so I wanted to find more comics like that, and then I found like quote unquote indie comics or small press comics. I don't know if that's too much.
No, not at all.
No, for sure. We like talking about stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of funny because everybody kind of has that same journey, because we kind of talk about it all the time, how the lifeblood of comics relies on the big two. So Heroes is a cool show, kind of going back to that, because it does seem to be a good balance of, you know, what's good and alternative, but also can bring in like the mass comic audience, if you will.
Right.
And it kind of...
Yeah, that's what we were originally talking about.
Yeah. But that's just kind of what it speaks to, you know, like everybody has the same journey. You always start off with the comic, like, you know, Marvel or DC or some kind of superhero book. Like, I don't know anybody that just starts reading Ghost World and that's their first comic, you know, or...
It's also nice because Heroes is one of those few shows that has all that variety of like mainstream superhero comics and indie small press stuff, but also has zero celebrities. Like, it's all just comic creators.
Right. So, and that's getting kind of rare, like the big comic shows where it's just comics only, because Heroes seems to be pretty big. I mean, like almost everybody that we talk to on this show is some kind of experience there. So I look forward to trying it out in the future. I never really thought that my work would do well there, but, JB's said that there's, Indie Island or whatever they call it. So
I mean,
hopefully if shows come back next year.
I don't know how many people who are also there looking for like cool stuff, but I was there. But, I don't know. That's the great thing. Also, I don't know. Like just one person, like if somebody finds like something in a Goodwill, but also like you have $300 to blow to go to a show, so one person sees your comics. No.
I mean, I think the majority of the attendees at that show are definitely kind of just Marvel Universe moviegoer types.
For sure.
But there's also a very large portion of people that go there looking for new comics.
Yeah, like I'd never had that experience of like comics in real life. Like it had always been this internet thing for me. But like I think I went in 2014 and that was like my first. It was like, wow, I could buy stuff from people I follow in real life,
Yeah, for sure.
It's cool.
And then you realize, go ahead.
I was going to say, so going back to your work, I did find it interesting that you seem to consciously make an effort to use analog when making your books. So what made you decide to strictly go that route rather than using some elements of digital or going full digital?
Honestly, how do I put it? I never had access to digital art, like, growing up. Like, I don't think I got a tablet until I was in college. And I think it was the same thing, like, I was like, I'll go half on it. And I've still used the same tablet. So some of it was just, like, it was almost completely lack of access. But now that I have access, it's like, the tactile experience. I don't know, like I can't feel what I'm doing the same way on a computer. And I know like there's like syntakes and there's nibs and stuff that like simulate it, or like putting a piece of paper over your tablet, but it I don't know, it's just not the same. I really like the physical experience of the thing. I mean, it's why I like cooking too. Like it's incredibly gratifying. It's like I'm making a thing and digitally, and I totally respect like digital art. Like it's hard as hell, but at the same time, the way my like brain works is it's not a real thing. I'm not holding it,
Right.
And you usually, you've posted some process things on your Instagram. You usually just do a color layer and then you'll do your inks over your pencils, I'm assuming, and then you just scan that in. Do you do any kind of like digital correcting at all with your colors?
Yeah, the colors are mostly like true to life. Sometimes I do like to mess with them and like slide because it might be like the value scale, like where you can like change the hue or whatever, like the underlying volume structure will
hue
be
and
the
saturation.
Same. Yeah,
right.
But I like fucking with the hue and being like, oh, that looks cool, And as I've gotten better, like I do less of that. But like I think I just posted something on Instagram that was like that, where I like fucked around with it, and I was like, wow, I like this a lot more than the thing I actually did. I mean, I guess it's like we're all actually doing it, like that's I want to be like careful about like my language about like what's actually being done. Like I know that like digital is actually doing it, but
no, I know what you mean. Yeah. I mean, working on something, there is a very big difference between working on a tablet and working with materials that you can hold in your hands and you can see the marks that you're making, because it is just a completely different experience.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, like, but still going off of that, the colors, the inks, digital correcting, the colors are basically the same. I try to make the colors look as true to the real thing, because there's like the whole, what you're seeing on the screen is CMYK, but what you're printing and what you're drawing is RGB. So like, that's another thing. Like if you might color something digitally and then you go to print it and it looks like shit, because guess what? That color doesn't exist in real life,
Yeah.
Some of that's like, I had to take like 1 or 2 like digital design courses in college, and I would fuck shit like that up and then be like, oh,
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me too.
Yeah, so I feel like I can also like see some of it's like I'm impatient, so it's like the immediacy of it. Like I know what it's going to look like. I can see what it looks like right now instead of having to wait and, I don't know, deal with all that shit. I want to deal with like the computer as little as possible, and I don't know. I mean, I'd like to learn more how to do it, but at the same time, like, I just use it to assemble stuff. I don't like drawing on it as much. But I mean, I think for like industry jobs, like storyboarders and stuff like that in animation, they want you to be able to draw digitally, which is why I started using the tablet, because in college I was really into the idea of like doing the California, like Burbank animation industry thing. And so that's why I learned, because I was like, nobody's hiring anybody who's drawing on paper anymore. Or they might, but, you know, you're going to have to learn how to use the tablet, so...
Is that still kind of a goal of yours to go out to Burbank and do some animating? I know a lot of people in comics do that, so...
No, I mean, yes, no. I would absolutely not say no if somebody wanted to pay me to do that.
Right.
But at the same time, I've always... I don't know, I love comics, and, like, I'm, like, very true to comics and everything. I don't know, how do I put it? I decided I wanted to be a cartoonist when I was 5 years old, so it's a job like any other. If I'm doing that job and my comics practice becomes unsustainable, I'm not going to do... And I also have the privilege of saying that because I don't have kids right now. That's totally different. But, you know, like, I've quit a job because I wasn't drawing comics, and I just was like, I'm going to find something else where I'm making the same amount, but I can draw comics.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people in animation have a similar mindset about the work.
Like, I think Rebecca Sugar had that happen. Like, I mean, I think Rebecca Sugar is, like, a good example of somebody who, like, went into animation, and, like, I like the stuff she's done in animation, but there aren't Rebecca Sugar comics, and I think ultimately, like, if there's gonna be, like, Audra Stang comics or Audra Stang animation, like, there should be comics, because that's what I'm best at. Like, any animation of, like, any comic I do is going to be, like, a pale imitation, you know, because that whole thing where, like, some people draw comics that are, like, thinly veiled Cartoon Network pitches, you know what I mean? So they're, like, shit comics because they're supposed to be animations in the first place.
Right.
Flip it around.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you've known you wanted to be a cartoonist since you were 5 years old. Was this the first comics you were exposed to? Or I guess you said it was more the Teen Titans show. Like, what were the first comics you remember reading? 'Cause I mean, if you make that decision at 5, like, surely you had something around the house or something, right?
Yeah, I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to tell this story. No, I'm just kidding. But, my parents both delivered newspapers. My dad had been a news carrier in Greensboro since he was 10 years old. And so both my parents were working for the newspaper, and there was an episode of Reading Rainbow where they learn how to, like, make a newspaper, so that's what, like, hooked me. And then there's a whole sequence where they talk to Ray Billingsley, who draws Curtis, and they show him making Curtis, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna do that. And I decided, oh shit, I'm gonna do that, so Curtis. And, like, Garfield. And what other ones in the newspaper did I like? I didn't like Family Circus, but now, you know, I've re-explored Family Circus thanks to the gentleman who does the Bubbles zine. I'm like, I'll give this another try, you know?
Yeah, Brian's always advocating
like,
for Family Circus.
For real?
Yeah.
Yeah, he loves Family Circus. Like, I bought, like, a little, like the little mystery novel size.
No.
Dude, he loves Family Circus.
That's
like,
funny. Okay.
He has some very complex thoughts. Yeah.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I try to look at it. The drawings are nice. You know, it's not necessarily my cup of tea, like, you know, like the captions and everything. Like, if I'm going to do some kind of, like, you know, nuclear family, I'd rather just read, like, Dennis the Menace or, you know, look at those, like, older Hank Ketchum pages. But, you know, Family Circus, I'm kind of coming around on it as well.
Interesting.
But, yes, I didn't mean to interrupt you, though. No. So, yeah, Curtis and Family Circus were in the paper.
But I read all the comics in the newspaper. I think they published Kathy, because the comic section used to be big. I mean, so I would read, like, I read, like, Beetle Bailey and, like, like, anything that was a comic. Like, I would read I just read anything that was a comic. Like, and so newspaper comics. And then, I watched the Teen Titans show, and I used to read, like, online. Like, I remember discovering that, like, the comics were different than the show. And I would, like, get into debates with kids about it at school, because I'd be like, no, actually, it's this, you know, and they'd be like, no, you know.
Did you start, like, checking out outside of newspaper comics? Like, did you ever have a phase where you started getting those Teen Titan comics or any kind of, you know, like, going to the comic shop to pick anything up?
I tried, but I didn't like the Teen Titan Go comics. I don't know who drew them, so I'm sorry, but I didn't think they were drawn as well. Like, I was,
dang.
I was really upset as a child, you know, like, it's like, what? And I also got, like, Adult Swim was really new, so I got into, like, Inuyasha. I'd always been into Dragon Ball Z. So for, like, a long period of time in middle school, like, I just completely read manga. I liked, like, Bleach. I don't know, like, all the, like, shit that everybody who was that age I mean, I'm like 92. I think you guys are like right around there. So, God, I fucking love Dragon Ball Z. I was fucking I love Dragon Ball Z. But, I'm trying to think of, I ended up reading The Umbrella Academy, actually, because me and my best friend, when we were, like, 14, she was really into My Chemical Romance, and I was into Fall Out Boy, and, like, I thought that, like, the comics were going to be bad because I didn't like My Chemical Romance, and then they were actually quite good, because, I'm sure as you guys know, like, Gerard Way was, like, originally, like, he wanted to be, like, a comic book artist, and so, like, that's how I got back into, like, American comics again, because I really liked that series.
Wait, was Gerard drawing? I know he wrote a bunch of comics. Did he actually draw any comics? I didn't know he drew anything.
Yeah, he was actually going to SVA for sequential art, and I could be wrong, it's been a while, but I believe he was in school when 9/11 happened, and that was just like a turning point moment for him, where he was like, I'm gonna pursue music. So he like went into music and became really prominent in that, so people didn't realize he was like a cartoonist, I think. And then now that he's had all that success with MCR, like now he can fund like Killjoys, and I know he wrote the Doom Patrol comics for DC recently, and I heard those were good, but I haven't actually read them yet.
I actually like those, yeah. He had that whole little imprint. Doom Patrol was really the only thing that I liked out of it. They gave Tom Scioli some pages in one of the book that was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only thing I really enjoyed was Doom Patrol from that, so yeah, that was pretty cool.
He's good at writing dialogue, actually. Like, going back to dialogue, I think that's what really appealed to me about his comics. Because also, like, I had tried reading, like, I think, like, Avengers comics. I did, like, Doctor Strange the Oath, too. But otherwise, like, I really didn't like how, like, women talked in comics. Like, they were just annoying. And I felt like the women in the Umbrella Academy, like, they could be, like, mean and shit. And, like, they just felt like real people, you know, so.
Yeah.
I know that, you know.
No,
like,
I agree.
I mean, I know you said you were reading manga, but, you know, I don't really get manga vibes from your work when I look at it. So, like, if you didn't really have, like, you know, a lot of comic, like...
I get Dragon Ball Z vibes from it.
Wait, really?
Yeah, like,
that's so good. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but, like, so what did you draw from for inspiration? Like, you know... Were you looking at certain artists, you know, just drawings of certain artists to kind of help you find your style? Or, you know, were you trying to channel like the cartoons you were watching? Like, because a lot of people will be like, oh, you know, I was looking at, you know, this guy or this girl's art and just tracing it. And then, you know, eventually, or, you know, what were you looking at for like influence when it came to developing your style? You know, is there anything that you like take from or?
I was really lucky that let me think. I was on Tumblr when like Tumblr was like going. And so I looked at a lot of, and I'm hard pressed to like say specific like artists, but vintage shoujo manga or like shoujo manga of the 60s, and it's just that. I mean, like everybody likes Tezuka. My first residency, I actually went to Copacetic and I bought like the Tezuka character illustration books, and I liked looking at animation too. But I'm trying to think. Like I was really into, and I still really like Noah Van Sciver's comics.
It's funny you mentioned him because like when it came, like I was thinking about like comics that were based in restaurants and like what captures the authenticity of being in a restaurant. And it's like your work. Mimi Pond did those books for Drawn and Quarterly about working in that restaurant in San Francisco that were really good. And then Noah's strips about being at Panera Bread.
Yes.
Like those like capture like the food industry the best in comics, in my opinion. Your work, Noah's and Mimi's.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there, but yeah.
No, I mean, that's one of my, I guess this is less stylistically, but I gravitate towards, how do I put it? Because Simon Hanselman's like one of my absolute favorites. And I had a conversation with him at it was the end of SPX 2017 because like Frank was packing up the table and Caleb was just like, yeah, like stay away from the table for now. Like we're packing up the table. So I'm just like, I'll go talk to Simon. And he was just like, how are you doing or whatever? And I told him I wanted to quit my job at Chipotle. And he was like, yeah, I remember I was working at McDonald's, you know, and like Simon talked about his like jobs. And even though he doesn't, there's like a comic where Mog works fast food, I think it's Bad Gateway where like Mog's working fast food. Like whenever he does draw like restaurant shit, it's really good. But just that like feeling, I don't know. But just, or like Mike Judge. Like Mike Judge is a big inspiration to me too. Like he just like put together the pie. I don't know what like job he had professionally. You know, maybe he's just pretending to be a working class guy. I should look into that. But like he just was like, oh yeah, like I'm just gonna like animate this and like see what happens. You know, I don't know. Like those Panera comics, like I feel like kind of directly inspired my trajectory in a way because I was just like, oh yeah, like he did it. Like, fuck it. Like, when I was younger, I thought that, like, making comics, like, meant having, like, an arts job and being able to do that. I didn't really think of, like, I don't know, I'm stuttering. It says a lot about, like, the way the educational system was that I never considered, like, skilled labor as, like, a realistic outcome. Like, learning how to cook has been, I think, the biggest advantage in comics to me because, God, I don't know, I'm sorry. I got off track. Where were we?
Oh, we were just talking about, looking originally at like what you were looking at to influence your style. And then Mike Judge, restaurant work. No, you're okay. This happens on the show all the time, probably.
It's why I've been really why I've enjoyed listening to your podcast recently, because like I'm not talking to anybody about comics. Like I talk to like Juan Fernandez sometimes, and like I talk to like Sid and Lane and some other folks around Pittsburgh, but like I really am aching for like the conversations you have like at the table, you know what I mean? Like, like talking shop or whatever.
Right. No, and that's one thing like that this year is like we've always said, even before the pandemic, that like, the best part about making comics is getting to go to shows to sell them, because it's like what you've been working on, but also just to like catch up with the people that know, quote unquote, the business, because you can't get in depth about this stuff with just anybody.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because it's like I feel like everybody, like the comics world, the circle is so big, but also so small at the same time. You mentioned, being starstruck earlier when you meet certain cartoonists, but the craziest thing is you can randomly get sat next to these cartoonists at tables, so it's just such a weird, small, interconnected world.
We ran into Chris Ware on the street at Cab. Like, me and my boyfriend were walking, and I was like, oh man, dude, like, that's fucking Chris Ware. And I was like, is it weird to, like, go say hey? But we were like, near the venue, and I was just like, hey, Chris Ware, like, I really love your comics. And he was like, that's very charitable of you. But it was just like, oh, friend, and now it's like, when you see somebody coming towards you, like, as you should, you're like, back up, maintain 6 feet.
Right, though.
All right, well, we have a couple of questions here from our listeners for the Gutter Gang, and we'll go ahead and get to those now. Cam?
Okay, so yeah, we got some questions here. If you have a question for JB or I or any guests that we're going to have on the show, you can email us at gutterboyspodcast@gmail.com. I also usually put up like a little questionnaire on my Instagram at Cam Del Rosario, and we also ask on Twitter. So you can email us, respond to Instagram stories or, a tweet. But our first question today for you, Audra, came from Instagram user wander_lane. Audra, when it comes time to draw comics, are you executing a script or changing ideas as you draw?
Both. I storyboard them, and then, once I actually get to, like, the page, it might be, like, like the thing of, like, oh, like, there's a crowd shot, and now I get to, like, decide what the faces look like. But other times, like, it might, like, I'm never operating on, like, a panel-to-panel script or whatever. Like, with the comic I did now, I think when I originally storyboarded it, it was, like, 12 pages, and now it's, like, 20, because sometimes I just get there, and I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, I see something that could work better, or I'm like, oh, I need to elaborate on this more because, like, my objective isn't going to be clear. Or likewise, it's like, oh, like, that's clear. I don't need these other 3 pages that hammer it home. It's already there.
Hell yeah. Alrighty. Next question, let's see here, came from Instagram user Ian Densford, friend of the show. She draws with pen and marker, I think. Please ask about classic versus digital, your preference with colors, etc. So we kind of touched on that earlier, but I mean, I don't know if you want to talk more about that or maybe talk supplies.
I want to talk about that, but also I want to backtrack to the last question because I also want to mention that Wanderlane is Andrew Neal, who draws meeting comics, and we met at SPX and we found out that we actually went to the same college like 10 years apart, and I thought that was really cool. And I wanted to share that because I really like his comics. He's like Borough-based, he's another North Carolina cartoonist, but he's really cool, so yeah. But also, relating to color, yeah, Ian Dinsford, I met him, I don't remember if it was 2016 or 2017, but when he came to Pittsburgh to do a residency, so hello, Ian. Hope you're well. But also, as far as colors go, I think about like volume structure for sure. So just like that's important in terms of choosing the colors, but also, but like my earlier stuff, I was like more hesitant with color because I wasn't good at value. So my colors would always look really muddy. And so when I took Frank's course, that's that like red, yellow, blue palette. And so I started working with that, and I worked in that for like a year or so because I just felt comfortable with it. And I also was still in school, and I just really wanted to like get better at my value relationships before I got more aggressive with color. But so it's just been like adding a little more color at a time. Like then when I did the Bia comic, I think there's like 5 or 6 colors instead of 3 colors, and now I just kind of like pull out all the colors because I have a stronger sense of like those relationships, because sometimes with like the vibrancy of a certain color, you can think that your value structure is going to end up one way, but then it's like yellow's tricky like that. Like you think yellow's like super light, but then when you look at it in terms of just the structure without, I don't remember the name for like the vibrancy or whatever, but it's actually like a darker value than you think it is. If that makes sense.
No, I'm following.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah. But in terms of like how I use color, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this word right, but leitmotif or leitmotif, I try to use color in that way. So a leitmotif is like in a TV show and like a character has like a little piece of music. If somebody's thinking of them, it might play, or like they walk on screen and you hear like so-and-so's guitar riff, So I try to use color in that way too. Maybe like Pale, Sick, and Magic. Like near the end, like Melanie and the other gal, oh my gosh, it's been a while, Lindsay, are wearing their like graduation tassels, and like Melanie's wearing like a big blue tassel because like blue's the color that's been associated with their friend for like most of the story. And that also goes back to like the power of comics, like I don't think you have to spell stuff like that out. Like you could just make it visually be there. I hope that's in the ballpark of what Ian was hoping to learn.
No, for sure, yeah.
Or me elaborate on. He's really good. He doesn't need to learn.
Alrighty. Next question came from Instagram user Croinkicks. Why does Owen give Bia? Is it Bia?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Why does Owen give Bia the middle finger while he's underwater?
Yes, that's also another great person. That's Sam O'Beary, and everybody should check out his stuff. His comics are like really good. He's one of my faves, but he flips her off because he's embarrassed because like the gills are like his secret thing, and so to have somebody like see his gills, it's just like, I don't know, like when I'm embarrassed I get angry. It tends to be my initial reaction, and he's the same way.
Okay, hell yeah. A little bit of yourself on the page.
Yeah.
So this came from my friend Doug K. He asked, what did you all eat for dinner? But this is actually the afternoon, so I guess lunch would be more applicable to our situation. Have you all had lunch yet?
No, I made bacon and eggs for breakfast, but I have not eaten lunch, actually.
Yeah, same here. I had a
boring basic stuff.
I put a bacon, egg, and cheese on some sourdough I had, and just had a little breakfast sandwich.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you, JB? Have you eaten today?
No, I haven't eaten anything yet.
No? You gotta eat after the show, man.
Probably.
Yeah. Alrighty. Next question. Let's see here. Alex Null, another friend of the show, wrote, how fully developed is the Audraverse? How long have you been creating it?
I love Alex's comics too. I feel like I'm like, everybody who asks a question is great. I love Alex's stuff as a sidebar. The Kids with Guns comics is like it's like probably my favorite comic I'm reading now. Like when like a new one comes out, like I'm like anxious, but like it's like a
reading it online?
No, I try to get it physically, but honestly, I think with the one that has the brown cover, I think I have 3 of them, and he's on 5, so I think 4 and 5 I have read online because I want to read them. I always opt for the physical thing if I can.
Same.
But I really, really like that comic. Like just like the intertwining of the relationships. Like I get like really into media experience. So like there were a few times reading it where I was like, oh shit, or something, and my boyfriend was like, are you okay? Like what the fuck's going on? I'm like, oh, it's just this comic, man. Like it's really got me. But I've been working on Storm Valley. I talked about this earlier, like some of the characters are characters I've had since I was like 12 or 13, but as far as like the current iteration of it or like getting serious about it was probably 2012-ish. And it changed a lot over time. Like, I interned at Disney World in the parks as a custodian, because when I tell people I interned at Disney, they think I mean, like, drawing, but no, I was a custodian, and I worked in Epcot, and that is where I got a lot of the inspiration for the whole, like, Magic Seas aspect of Star Valley, and the kind of things that, like, shaped, like, Star Valley, the city, into being. So that's probably the point. And then, like, 2014, I did Frank's course, and I did the Ice Ray, which is, like, kind of a pilot of one of the Star Valley storylines that follows the middle school-aged characters. So yeah, I guess I'd say about 8 years. But like I said, like, the roots of it are in, like, like 2005 or 6, maybe. 15 long years.
Hell yeah. Another cartoonist that I'm a fan of, Sean Knickerbocker, just wrote in, not with a question, but just wanted to say Audra Stang rules.
Yeah, it's so nice. Sean's so fucking good, man.
I know, I've been seeing the recent work he's been posting on Instagram, and it's insane.
Yeah, like, he's really good. I didn't meet him until recently, too. Like, it's the great thing of, like, when you discover somebody whose work you really like late, it's, like, great because now there's, like, a whole bunch of stuff that you get to read, but then when you read it all, now you're, like, waiting for more. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm never gonna be, and this is just about everybody I like, you know, I never want to be the guy who's like, hey man, when's the next thing? Congrats on your new thing. I really like it. When's your next thing? But, you know, him and Alex and, like, I don't know, a lot of these folks, I'm like, come on, what's the next thing?
Yeah, I bother people. Like, if people ask me, you know, what I'm working on, and, like, you know, I'll ask Alex sometimes what he's working on in the DM if I see that he's posting, like, progress or something. But, yeah, I'm, like, you know, like you, I'm not reading it digitally, so I'm, like, behind on the rest of the world. I'm just ordering them physically from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is a fantastic book, though, so that gets the seal of approval from me. So if you all want to check out Alex and All's Kids with Guns, that book is really good. Last question came from friend of the show and former guest Caleb Arecchio. Have her talk about hanging out with Gilbert Hernandez.
Yeah, so we met Gilbert at, Frank organized a workshop for us at SPX 2017. Gotta get those chronological dates in there. Yeah, I can't remember who all was there, so let me think. But it was like a group of us, like I think like Adam Griffiths, he was there, I think like Alexis Zirit, Kate Harmon, Sal, Caleb, me, Frank, of course. But we did like some exercises with him. I want to make sure I said his name right actually, because I really like Adam's stuff and I am really bad at getting names right, but not... Yeah, like I can picture his work in my head, but I don't want to get his name wrong. Okay, I think I did get it right. Yeah, Adam Griffiths. I was worried I said Alex or something.
Okay.
Yeah, people get my name wrong a lot, and I don't like it, so I never want to get anybody's name wrong. What
do you get on what variations of your name do you get?
Just anything that starts and ends with an A. Like Alexa, Aubrey, Andrea, Audra, like it's I don't know. I used to just let people call me Audrey, but like at some point I was like, no, like I should tell people what my name is. That's important. And as somebody who taught, you know, like, sorry that this is such a sidebar, but, like, getting kids' names right is really, really important. Like, just in teaching experiences I've had, I've noticed that, like, teachers, you know, like, it just makes a kid feel like shit if you don't get their name right. Even if it's, you know, just, like, Adam or Alex, you know, like, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so we hung out with Gilbert, we did the workshop, we, like, went to dinner with him, and... I think that was like that same group, and he likes The Room. I'm not good at telling this story because I haven't thought about this in a second, but that was really compelling to me that Gilbert Hernandez likes The Room.
You mean the movie? Like the Tommy Wiseau movie?
Yeah, like The Room, you know. He was like, the Room. And I was like, yes, The Room, yes! You know, like, because the whole time, you know, like, I'm anxious as hell. Like, I probably sound anxious like half of this podcast, and you guys are great for accommodating that, but like, you know, like, I'm anxious as shit. I'm like, oh, it's Gilbert Hernandez, and he's looking at my comics, and, you know, like, my little, like, 8th grade characters or whatever, and then, like, I don't even remember who was talking about The Room, but I was just, like, I felt, like, at peace in that moment, you know, that Gilbert, too, like, The Room, because I love Gilbert. I mean, like, his stuff's some of my favorites, so that was just fucking... I'm sorry, I keep saying fuck, but
No, yeah, you know, we curse all the time on here.
It was so cool. You know, like, it was just one of those moments of like, wow, like the lineage, you know.
Right.
Because I'm gonna be mad if I get this wrong, but did the Hernandez brothers not study under Kirby briefly? Am I wrong?
So I read a little bit of that Fantagraphics book, like the oral history, and I know that, like, I don't know if they studied under Kirby, but I know that they were around Kirby and Kirby knew them.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me if they did work with them at some point in time, just because it was, you know, Gary Groth was, like, you know, hanging out with Kirby all the time, and I probably linked them up.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess that was like around the time that book came out. So I don't know. I was just like all like, oh my god, like the lineage, you know, like, oh, you know. So, but then we all like went to dinner and went to the there's like this Ethiopian place we go to, and Frank ordered like all this food, like 2 platters of food, and like a slight miscalculation on the amount of food, and there was just like people weren't eating it. It was just sitting there, and Frank comes from a rich Italian heritage, and he was like, don't stop eating the food. And I'm like, what? He's like, don't stop eating the food. He's like, if you stop eating the food, the dinner's over. And I'm like, what? He's like, eat the goddamn food. He's like, I'm like, oh shit, okay, you know. And like Gilbert's like head of the table, and I'm just like eating my food, and like I don't know what Gilbert and Sal were talking about. And like I had like too many drinks too. It was like I had like a coffee and a water, and then I think like I got like a beer or something. So I had like all these drinks around me, and I'm just like eating this food for the Italian tradition, you know. So it was definitely like a culturally enriching experience in more ways than one. Also, I wish I could remember the name of the Ethiopian place, because it's really good and I highly recommend it, and I'm pissed that I won't get to go there this year or possibly next year, considering how things are going. I really hope they survive the pandemic, honestly. That's scary.
It's in Bethesda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hell yeah.
Yeah, I wanna say it's called Sheba, maybe?
Okay.
But I am not positive. But we've gone like a few, like the comics workbook group, we went like a few different years. That's just like the place. And like there's some other cartoonists who are there. I don't mean like the place, like the place. I just mean like that's like the place that we happen to go. But now people are going to show up there. So it's like in Ghost World when everyone starts showing up to the diner. And now they're like, we have to find a new diner. The Satanists. All
Hell
the Satanists are coming to the Ethiopian restaurant now. Sorry, guys.
Alrighty, well, that does it for questions. Audra, you have a new issue of the Audra Show coming out at the end of July, is that correct?
No. No, I don't know. I have been very fortunate while I've been in Pittsburgh to print my books on the menu printer at my prep cook job, which is currently not in service. So I am trying to reach out to them to see if I can get into the restaurant and print books, because it's been this deal of like I bring my own paper and like I cut in my paper cutter and stuff, but like I get to use that printer. So I'm hoping now to have it in August. I'm optimistic. I'm glad I got Pale, Sick, and Magic out before the big shutdown, because I honestly don't know what's going to happen in Pittsburgh. It's not looking great, but I'm hopeful. So I might have to, I might look into like an alternative method of printing, or I don't know yet, because I'm so tied to the physicality of the thing. I've thought about like a PDF release, but I'm like, that's the last case resort. I hate that.
Right.
So I hate that so much, but also, it's safer maybe.
Well, you did mention also that the new book, Pale, Sick, and Magic, is out. Do you still have copies of that for sale? Where can our listeners get that?
No.
No?
Domino has some. Austin English's distro, Domino Books, should have some. I have, as of right now, I have 4, and after that, I'm in the same boat. I just need to figure out how I'm going to obtain more.
Right. Well, yeah. I've always ordered I got the issue number 4 of the Audra Show directly from you, but I ordered the other ones from Radiator Comics. I know they have your stuff in stock as well.
Yeah.
So I was able to grab some of your stuff from there, but where can people find you online? Anything you want to plug?
Yes, you can find me on my Instagram. It's Audra, AUDRA. STANG. If you just type in my name, it's there. I have a website too. It's called Poodle Dooples, because that's the domain name I bought 8 years ago, and I'm sorry, but like the word poodle and then duple and then an s.com. I'm gonna have to retcon that website name at some point, but yeah, there's that. And I only offer that because that's where a lot of the like pre-Audra Show stuff is. And I'm hoping to before all this was happening, I was really hoping to do something collecting that older stuff. Definitely directly inspired by, I don't know if you know the cartoonist Evan Salazar, but he recently put together a collection of some of his stuff, and he's also one of my favorite cartoonists now. I met him when he came to stay at the residency, but something
I didn't
like
know Evan
that.
was there. Cool.
Because, I like I said, I think it gives context to the stuff now, and I'm trying to find a way to reissue it, because I don't want to redraw it. Because if I redraw old things, I would never make new things. But yeah, it's on that website if anybody wants to read it. And I think that's all I have to plug. Oh, I'm going to also plug, like, if you're going to go outside, I'm sure anybody listening to your podcast already does that, but, like, please wear a mask. Don't take your mask off to talk to the hostess at the restaurant or the cashier at the grocery store. Like, they're not immune to your germs. And I don't know why people think this, but, wear a mask, guys. Support your local mask makers,
Yeah.
But please, I want this to be over. I miss comics. I'm, like, as somebody who's, like, generally nervous to talk to people, going to comic shows and having something wildly specific to talk about eliminates a lot of that anxiety, and I need those interactions to come back. So
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Gutter Boys Oath, wear a mask.
Sanitize.
All right, well, that'll do it for this episode. Episode 31 is in the books. We want to thank Audra for coming on the show today and talking to us a little bit about their work. But yeah, that'll do it. Thanks so much, and stay gutter.
Thank you. Bye.
I did not hit her. Oh, hi, Mark. Lisa, you're tearing me apart. You know what they say. Love is blind. Let's go eat out. Everything is fine. Jeep, 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 jeep. I don't mind. Jeep, 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 jeep. Everything is fine. Jeep, 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 jeep. I don't mind. Jeep, 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 jeep. You're tearing me apart. Oh, hi, Mark. Hey, everybody. Thank you. This is a beautiful party. You invited all my friends.
Hey everybody, let's eat cake.
I have an announcement to make. I fed up with this world. You're just a chicken. How can you do this? You make me sick.
Leave your stupid comments in your pocket.
You're going to destroy Johnny. He's very sensitive.
Leave your stupid comments in your pocket, son of a bitch.
I did not hit her. Oh, hi, Mark. Lisa, you're tearing me apart. You know what they say. Love is blind. Let's go eat out. Everything is fine. Jeep, 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 jeep. I don't mind. Jeep, 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 jeep. Everything is fine. Jeep, 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 jeep. I don't mind. Jeep, 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 jeep. You're tearing me apart. Hi, doggy. What's the story more? Anyway, how is your sex life? You're tearing me apart. Oh, hi, Mark. And there were a slide. Oh, hey, Danny. Oh, hi, Mark. Oh, hey, Peter. Oh, hey, guys. Everybody, I'm so happy I have you as my friend. Oh, hi, babe.
Oh, hi, Johnny.
Oh, hi, good. Hi, doggy. Everybody, I love you as a human being. To me, yeah.
Where's my money, Danny? Did you lose my money? Stop ganging up on me, for God's sake.
Why? Why?
Danny.
Why? Why?
Danny.
Why?
Danny.
Let's go home. I did not hit her. Oh, hi, Mark. Lisa, you're tearing me apart. You know what they say. Love is blind. Let's go eat out. Everything is fine. Jeep, 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 jeep. I don't mind. Jeep, 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 jeep. Everything is fine. Jeep, 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 jeep. I don't mind. Jeep, 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 jeep. You're tearing me apart. Hi, doggy. Oh, hi, Mark. Yeah, you can say that again. You're tearing me apart. Hey, everybody, the expert, Mark.
What kind of drugs did you take?
Why? You're tearing me apart. Calm down. What's the story, Mark? Yeah, you can say that again. Me underwears. You're tearing me apart. Anything for my princess. Oh, hi, Mark. You're tearing me apart.
People are very strange these days.